Hello everybody watching on YouTube, and welcome to race number 3 of Season 2 NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series. I am Levi McIntyre, the voice of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series, here to welcome you to the Peak Performance 400 here at Pikes Peak Raceway Park, as we are getting set for 38 laps of racing here at this short 1-mile racetrack up in the Rockies of Colorado. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the point standings as they come into this race today. Leading by 1 point in the standings after last week at California is Anthony McCrory. Second is Charles Sanford. Third, Nelson Thornhill. Fourth, Rafael LeDuc. And then fifth is last week's winner, James Qualls. Sixth is Trent Dunham. Seventh, Sean Galligan. Eighth, Chris Michaels. Ninth, Grayson Acevedo. And then 10th is David Rivera. Then the rest of the top 20 is Chris Dollerton, Benjamin Miles, Dorian Facepuncher, Joshua Collard, Jonathan Zorline, Austin LaPlante, and then a four-way tie for 17th is Paul Minnick, Preston Plord, JT Bryant, and DJ Curtis. So with that said, let's look at the starting lineup. Starting in the last row, we have Zach Rogers and Jonathan Zorline. And then the top 10 in the lineup, Kyle Matthews is on the pole for today. Trent Dunham will be starting next to him. Row 2 is Nelson Thornhill, Jessica Shelton. Row 3 is Cole Deaver and Chris Michaels. Row 4, Dylan Thoreau and JT Bryant. And then row 5, Austin LaPlante and DJ Curtis. So with that said, let's go ahead and get the command to fire engines for the Peak Performance 400 at Pikes Peak.
Drivers, start your engines!
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So this is an unknown for these drivers because previously in any of my offline races, we have never been to this racetrack. This is going to be the first time ever we're going to be going to this racetrack at Pikes Peak International Raceway. And from what I've seen of doing some tests at this track, it is pretty fast for a small racetrack, but very competitive. The wrecks can be a bit much, but pit strategy is going to be a huge factor for this race. So we shall see how this event will go once the green flag comes out as the pace car pulls into pit road, which means it is time to... Excuse me, it is time to boogity 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 go racing! So Kyle Matthews leads the first lap here at Pikes Peak. Trent Dunham remains in second, but Jessica Sheldon actually went by Nelson Thornhill for the third position. And now she is on the back bumper of Trent Dunham for the second spot. And in the meantime, Kyle Matthews still leading the way and leads lap number 2. Next battle I see on track is for the 5th spot between Chris Michaels and Cole Deaver in the 92. Cole Deaver, I think this is only his second start this season. He did start on the pole for the Daytona 500, but had a rough Daytona 500. But he is back here at Pikes Peak, right now here in the early going, maintaining top 10 track position. Back up at the front, it's a top 3 battle for the lead. Kyle Matthews has the spot, but Trent Dunham in second, and then Jessica Shelton third, are all nose to tail. And 2 out of 3 of these cars are teammates, Shelton and Matthews, both from Retro Racing Enterprises. Kyle led that lap still. And then meanwhile, battle for 4th, Chris Michaels underneath of Nelson Thornhill, and now Chris Michaels manages to clear the 78 for position, and meanwhile Joshua Sakuli in the 11 working underneath of Cole Deaver for the 6th position on track. Austin LaPlante, Grayson Acevedo, JT Bryant all in a formation. Dylan Thoreau also running up high. So we got a lot of battles going on, and the battle for the lead up at the front is still ongoing. Nobody's really been able to make any kind of move on the 09. They're just kind of maintaining their position on track. Though Trent Dunham has been gaining little by little on the 09. Sheldon doing the same thing. We'll see what happens with this top 3 battle for position. But right now, Kyle Matthews, who started on the pole, has led every single lap in this race. Trent Dunham's just gaining little by little. That time he gained another 100th of a second on the 09. Now let's see if they're going to try and make a move. And they are not, at least at the moment. Meanwhile, Austin LaPlante now moves into, looks like, the 6th position, as Nelson Thornhill is up high on top of Cole Deaver. And here comes Rafael LeDuc in the 99, running the Office Depot car this week. He's working his way up into the picture for battles in the top 10. And I hit the wrong button. Back up at the front, Kyle Matthews still maintaining the lead and is actually kind of pulling away from Trent Dunham little by little. Jessica Sheldon's still up there. Chris Michaels is actually gaining on the top 3 because these 3 are somewhat battling, but not a whole lot. But at the same time, the 17's maybe taking his time, maybe too much time, because here comes Joshua Sakuli as well into the fray. Yeah, you can tell that the 17 and the 11 are catching the top 3. And also Jessica Sheldon starting to lose ground to Trent Dunham for that 2nd spot. And Trent has just been hanging on to that back bumper of the 09 pretty much this whole entire run we've got going. And he hasn't really been making any moves to try to get by the 09. Maybe he's kind of playing mind games with Kyle Matthews and is waiting for the right moment to go for the move. Because also keep in mind, pit stops are going to be a huge factor in this race. And I mean a huge factor. And meanwhile, Sheldon continuing to lose ground to the top 2 to the point where the 17 and the 11 have caught her. And now they're running in a single line formation. Oh, but Chris Michaels thought about making the move, but decided against it. Gets back in line behind the 02. As Trent Dunham still isn't going for a move underneath the 09. And meanwhile, battle for 4th and maybe 3rd. Joshua Sakuli underneath Chris Michaels, but stays in line behind the 02 of Shelton. And now he might be trying to go for a move, but just not there quick enough. And he's still got Chris Michaels to his outside. And then meanwhile, battle for the 6th position. Austin LaPlante has it, but Rafael LeDuc wants it. Right now, the highest running rookie on the racetrack is Cole Deaver in the 8th position. And then in between him and Grayson Acevedo is Dylan Thoreau. So right now, the 92 and the 55 are the highest running rookies on track. As we're looking around the field, and Nelson Thornhill, since the drop of the green flag, is just falling like a rock. But meanwhile, here comes James Qualls with a run underneath of points leader Anthony McCrory. Speaking of the top 5 in points, let's see where the 03 of Charles Sanford is running. Oh, he's running outside the top 10, so right now, as far as the top 3 in the points, Sanford is running the highest out of them. So right now, Sanford would take the points lead over going into next week at Atlanta. Back up the front, it is still Trent Dunham just stuck to that back bumper of the 09. He is just not making any moves. And now LaPlante and LeDuc have actually caught the other cars in the top 5 to make this looks like a 5-car fight for the 3rd spot. As they're just running single file, not really going for anything, at least for now. Maybe they're just buying their time because remember, like I said, pit stops are going to be a factor here very soon. As we are approaching the halfway point, we are 1 lap away from halfway through here at Pikes Peak. And it's been all Kyle Matthews so far. And Trent Dunham still trying to figure out what it is he has to do to get by the 09. Meanwhile, I see a battle happening in the 6th position again between LeDuc and LaPlante. And LeDuc is gonna have the run off of 4. But they ended up losing a little bit of time to Chris Michaels and others. But LeDuc is, I think, going to clear the 48. Yes, he is clear of the 48 now. So up to 6th place goes Rafael LeDuc. And now he's going to go for a risky move underneath Chris Michaels, his teammate, for the 5th spot. He's trying to gain points to get into the points lead as well. Meanwhile, Jessica Sheldon is still holding off Joshua Sekuli for the 3rd spot. And whoa! Little checkup right there. Little minor checkup right there for the 02 since she had Sekuli right on her rear end. And man, Nelson Thornhill has dropped all the way to dead last after whatever it was at the start of the green flag that forced him. And now we actually have the fight for the lead. Trent Dunham has got a room underneath the 09 to go for that move. I guess Trent decided now's the time to try and take the lead away. But they are still very close side by side, and also Joshua Sekuli moves into 3rd. Sheldon losing actually now 4th to Rafael LeDuc. And it's still side by side, and they were close at the line, but Matthews still led that lap. But now Trent Dunham, let's see if he can clear him off of 4. Not quite, and actually Trent's going to come into pit road. Here is the green flag pit stops we were hoping to see what's going to happen, but Kyle Matthews stays out. And actually the first one that came on the pit road was Dougie Shears in the 83. And now Dorian Facepuncher's on pit road, along with many others. Not a whole lot of cars went into pit road that time. But now Kyle Matthews pulls out. So is LaPlante. Jessica Sheldon's going to stay out an extra lap, because she wants to get the 1 bonus point for leading a lap. And there's Dougie Shears, who just came off. DJ Curtis, Preston Plord, Anthony McCrory, Nathaniel Reed, Cole Deaver, Carson Gum, Jesse King, Chris Dollarton, Zach Rogers, David Rivera, Matt McIntyre, Jonathan Zorline, Sean Galligan all stay out. But now Kyle Matthews is into his pit box, the first pit box, which gives him an advantage. And he's going with 2 tires and gas. Interesting strategy, but he's got Austin LaPlante, and he's going to go by Kyle Matthews, so that's going to be huge. That is a huge, huge moment right there. And now Jessica Sheldon, who was the leader, is now on pit road herself. Let's see what she's going to do. Although she just gotten passed by everyone that's already pitted, so Sheldon's going to end up losing a lot of spots. Meanwhile, this looks like the battle for the lead. Joshua Sekuli and Austin LaPlante. And Kyle Matthews, he actually made contact with somebody. I think it was probably Dylan Thoreau, because Matthews has got a big donut on the driver's side of his car. So that cost him a spot or 2. Wait a minute, they're actually scoring Dougie Shears as the race leader. Oh, but the caution is out. Zach Rogers is on pit road with damage. Nelson Thornhill was involved in whatever happened. And Carson Gum was just getting done with his pit stop. And now I think he's going to go a lap down. I don't know, but Dougie Shears, I guess his strategy of coming into pit road first worked out because he's your race leader, as we are under caution for the first time today here at Pikes Peak after what looks like a double car incident involving Zach Rogers and Nelson Thornhill. But anyways, with that said, let's actually go ahead and take a look at a replay since we're coming to 10 laps to go here at Pikes Peak. Let's see what brought the caution out for the first time today here at Pikes Peak. Well, here's a look at what happened. So Nelson Thornhill was already on track after his pit stops, but Zach Rogers was just coming out. And Thornhill goes down and clips the quarter panel of Rogers, and then look at how hard those hits were. Both guys hit so hard, they ended up flipping over. Nelson Thornhill flipping over 2 times alongside the outside wall. And Zach Rogers, on the other hand, went for a flip and then slid backwards on top of the safer barrier for several feet. But yeah, let's look at this from the helicopter view. So I don't think Thornhill realized Rogers was slow, and he was trying to move down low, and Rogers, I guess he wouldn't get out of the way of the 78, and so they collided as a result of the 78 coming down into the right rear quarter panel of the 9 and just turned him head on into the outside wall, and Thornhill hit hard on the right side that it caused him to flip over as well. This has to be, I think this has been the hardest crash I think I've seen so far this season. Now this camera shot's going to be interesting to see the impact of both cars. And Rogers, as he was spinning, it picked the rear tires up off the ground as he got turned. And then let's see the speeds. It almost looked like his car never even slowed down once it got spun around. And as a result, that was a vicious head-on collision for the 9. And then the 78 hit very hard as well. Let's see how hard he hits. He was gaining speed too, and he went right side first at about 130 miles an hour into that safer barrier. But man, that was a hard, vicious crash. The hardest crash I've ever seen on a short track. But we're actually going to take an onboard with the 9 of Zach Rogers, and that's going to be scary to watch. On board with Zach Rogers. This is going to be hard, guys. Man. Well, after that vicious crash, both cars, the 78 and the 9, are out of the race for the rest of the way as a result of that brutal crash. But anyways, the top 20 when we get back racing, Dougie Shears is your race leader. Second is Joshua Sekuli. Third is Dylan Thoreau. Fourth is Austin LaPlante. Fifth is Chris Michaels. Sixth is Rafael LeDuc. Seventh, Trent Dunham. Eighth, Kyle Matthews. Ninth, Dylan Poteet. 10th, Kev Shearer. 11th is Charles Sanford. 12th, Cole Deaver. 13th, Dorian Facepuncher. 14th, Emmanuel Hardnett. 15th, Charles Jackson. 16th is PJ Williams. 17th, Jessica Sheldon. 18th, James Qualls. 19th, JT Bryant. 20th is Seth Cole. Pace car in pit road. Green flag is back out with 7 laps to go here at Pikes Peak, and Dougie Shears got off to a huge jump on that restart. He's basically checked himself out, but in the meantime, actually no, he's slowing down. Something's amiss on the 83, because he is slow, and now here comes Dylan Thoreau for position. What in the world just happened to the 83? He's losing a lot of time, and he just lost the race. Dylan Thoreau now has a monstrous 1-second lead over everybody behind them as a result of something that went wrong with the 83 of Shears. Meanwhile, oh, contact! They're beating and banging everywhere. Rafael LeDuc now goes by LaPlante. Trent Dunham now into second. But that race lead has grown to over 2 seconds. Dylan Thoreau with the position right now. And if a caution comes out, the race will end under yellow because they will not be able to get back going under green flag conditions for a one-lap shootout or anything. But Dylan Thoreau is actually losing time to the number 1 of Trent Dunham, but I don't think it's going to be enough time for Trent Dunham to get up there and try and get by for the lead or not. And then Rafael LeDuc takes over the 3rd spot with Joshua Sekuli behind him as Dougie Shears continues to hold up the whole field as it is just scattered from the 83 on up. Because look at all the different places they're all running. And then the 83 holding up everyone behind him. I'm sure this whole entire field is not going to be happy with the 83 of Dougie Shears, because I don't know what went wrong with his car to the point where it's so slow in comparison. Meanwhile, Dylan Thoreau still leads. Trent Dunham is trying everything to gain as much ground as possible, but I just do not see it happening because there's just not enough time. Dylan Thoreau comes off turn 4. White flag is out. Trent continues to try and chip away at the lead, but again, like I said, there's not going to be enough time for him to make anything happen. Going into turn 3, Dylan Thoreau still keeping it straight. And now we're coming off turn 4, and the checkered flag is waving. After a controversial finish, Dylan Thoreau wins the Peak Performance 400 at Pikes Peak. After a controversial end to the race as a result of that restart, Dylan Thoreau took advantage and won. That's a huge win for that 41 team, and look at that, with a donut on the driver's side of his car after contact, I believe, with the 09 of Kyle Matthews earlier, still prevails and gets that W. So great job for the 41 car to manage to make that work. Rest of the top 10, however, Trent Dunham, he was just struggling early on to try to get by Kyle Matthews until a lap before the green flag pit stops happened, but he comes through with a great run in second. And I think the biggest mover for the points as far as getting up to the points lead, I think, is going to go to Rafael LeDuc, who comes out 3rd. And then Joshua Sekuli was the highest finishing rookie this week in 4th. And then Dorian Facepuncher with a rebound after last week at California comes out 5th. Austin LaPlante with a great run in 6th. Chris Michaels with a solid 7th. The dominant car of the race, Kyle Matthews, finishing 8th. Charles Sanford with a solid run in 9th. And a great run in the top 10 great run in the top 10 for Grayson Ace Veto into 55. Rest of the top 20 was Dougie Shears, Emmanuel Hartnett, Cole Deaver, Dylan Poteet, Kev Shearer, Jessica Sheldon, Charles Jackson, James Qualls, Nathaniel Reed, P.J. Williams. Rest of the top 30 was Seth Cole, DJ Curtis, Anthony McCrory, Paul Minnick, Johnny Gardner, J.T. Bryant, Jesse King, Preston Plord, Benjamin Miles, Joshua Collard. And the rest of the lead lap cars were Carson Gum, Dylan Young, Chris Dollarton, Jonathan Zorleen, Zachary Fitzwater, Andrew Rich, David Rivera, Matt Haas, Matt McIntyre, and Sean Galligan. And then the only 2 cars out of the race after that vicious crash were Nelson Thornhill and Zach Rogers. Well, that does it for our coverage here today at Pikes Peak. And next week, we head over to Atlanta for the Bass Pro Shops 500. But until then, here are your results, rookie points and regular points heading into Atlanta. And this is Levi McIntyre, signing off.